The first running back and the biggest must avoid to me is somebody that might come as a little bit of a shock to most fantasy football players, especially how he played last year in his rookie year, that being Najee Harris. Najee Harris had a fantastic season last year, finished as running back number 4, led the league in passes caught, led the league in usage. But that, for me, is why I think he's going to have a really big drop this year. No chance he's replicating that many passes caught. He had 74 passes caught. No way that's happening again. The usage. He had the top usage rate in the league, was used 14% more than Jonathan Taylor was, and we saw where Jonathan Taylor finished. He has a mobile quarterback now, so he's not going to get as many drop-offs. To me, he's definitely going to come down this year.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there. Another thing is that with that new quarterback, yeah, he's mobile. We also have no idea what that offense is going to look like. They lost Juju. They still have their offensive line wasn't the greatest last year.
30th ranked by PFF right
exactly.
now.
So it's really hard to determine what route that is going to go. It's going to be the first time in a while that they don't have Big Ben, and they've always had really bad backup quarterbacks. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Najee got the benefit of how bad Big Ben was and how immobile he was last year because he got so many dump offs. Week 3, I believe it was, he had 12 catches. Week 3 or week 4, he had 12 catches. That's not happening again. He's not going to be able to replicate 74 passes caught. That's more than a lot of wide receivers had last year. There's certain guys that might be on my must draft list that I fully expect them to get high results in the passing category. But Najee Harris going as high as pick 6 at RB4, I would much rather take Dalvin Cook. I'd much rather have Leonard Fournette, really big on Leonard Fournette this year, and even Joe Mixon. Like all 3 of those guys, I definitely have over Najee Harris. Second on the list, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He is a fraud. Every time the Chiefs have the opportunity to put somebody in instead of him, they do it. Last year, Jerick McKinnon. Year before that, Damian Williams. This year, going to be Ronald Jones. The Chiefs are telling us we picked wrong with that pick in the first round, and we want somebody else in our backfield besides Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
I'm going to 110% agree with you, bro. I think everybody watching this can also agree. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just – he's not –
he's a bust.
He's a bust. He's probably the biggest running back bust in the last 10 years.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't want to agree with that, but like it's not incredibly wrong.
I can't really think of anybody on the top of my head because there's not a lot of running backs picked in the first round. I mean, Sony Michel was picked by the Pats. And,
yeah, he's been better.
He's been better. So, I mean, he did a lot for the Rams last year. So
in the Chiefs offense where you have everything to succeed.
Everything.
Pat Mahomes, best quarterback in the league, arguably. Andy Reid, best offensive-minded coach in our lifetimes, arguably of all time. Everything is set up for him to succeed. Remember Kareem Hunt before him. He was a top 5 running back with Patrick Mahomes catching passes. However, last year, Clyde Edwards-Helaire never got above 20 fantasy points. And at the end of the year, Jerick McKinnon, who's bounced around team to team, he took over as the lead dog in that offense. And now you're also adding Rojo to that team. He has his issues with fumbles, and he lost his job to Leonard Fournette ultimately last year. But I can really see a world where he's the top dog in this offense over CEH.
Yeah, I once again, I agree with you. And even to add to that, Damian Williams, a lot of people said he should have won MVP in that Super Bowl.
You're a lot of people, all right?
I am a lot of people.
No.
But a lot of other people also said the same thing. But that's just to an example of, like, who heard of Damian Williams before he was on the Chiefs? Only Dolphins fans. Only Dolphins fans. And so other than that, I mean, that's just an example of how easy it is to succeed in that system.
And Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't able to do that. And if you look at where he's going this year, his ADP is around 83. You can get guys like Rashad Penny, who really boomed last year. Last 5 weeks of the regular season last year, Rashad Penny was the number 1 running back in those last 5 weeks. Only had 1 week below double digit, had multiple 20-point performances in the last 5 weeks last year. That Seattle offense stinks outside of, well, actually not outside of. What stinks about that offense is Drew Lock or Geno Smith. That is a big issue, and that's what we're going to address with some people later.
Well, and their offensive line as well. But
yeah, he found a way to make it work still, though.
But that's just how Seattle has been ever since even Marshawn was there. they've never had a good pass protecting offensive line, but they've always had a good rush offensive line. Like I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Tennessee's very similar in that way, but that's another.
Yeah. Good luck to Drew Lock or whoever it is back there at center. But I would much rather have Rashad Penny, who is going really like 10 to 15 spots after CEH's. Gabriel Davis is going around where Clyde Edwards-Helaire is. You could also take Darren Waller around there. So real big question mark as to why Clyde Edwards-Helaire has really any value in fantasy football. To me, he doesn't. Talking about Seattle, both Seattle Seahawks wide receivers are a no for me, especially DK Metcalf, who is going around pick number 52. You have either Drew Lock or Geno Smith back there. There's really no world where I can see either of those guys having a good year this year.
Yeah. I mean, I was always pretty high on Drew Lock when he was with Denver. I'm going to be honest with you, but he's not going to succeed in Seattle. That's like David Carr with Houston. It's not going to work. He's going to get killed. He's not going to mature. Like, he has all the potential in the world. It's not going to happen there, though. He has arguably better receivers in Denver than he does now.
Yeah, and you look at those wide receivers in Denver, only one of them had a standout year. That was Courtland Sutton, but 2 or 3 years ago before the ACL tear. That year, he had a very good season, relatively. Like I think he finished as like a top 20 wide receiver. Now you have the Seattle Seahawks here, bottom 5 offensive line. That's not going to give a lot of time for Drew Lock or Geno Smith, whoever it is, to throw, neither of which are the best throwers of the ball in the first place. And I always want to avoid bad offenses when it comes to fantasy, because you might have good individual players, but because the team stinks, it's so much higher likely for them to have bust type weeks.
Yeah.
And DK Metcalf last year had quite a few of those. He also had quite a few good games, but he also had Russell Wilson at the helm. So I don't really feel comfortable with either of those two.
Even Russell Wilson missed a lot of the season last year. So and neither wide receiver did well without him. I mean,
that whole offense did.
I mean, yeah. I mean, given they've always had success at the running game, whether it be with Rashad Penny or Chris Carson.
Yeah.
But Chris Carson and Rashad Penny's less injury prone, but he's still, up there. Chris Carson, though, he's just touches the ball and hurts his hamstring.
Chris Carson definitely had the more severe injury with that neck injury.
That is awesome.
Like, there's a question whether he can return to football at all the rest of his career. And Rashad Penny has dealt with injuries, and when we finally saw him active, he's the one guy from this offense where I'm like, okay, I definitely want him. Because in that bad offense last season, he was still able to succeed once he finally got a string of games where he was healthy in the running back one.
And I mean, you saw I drafted him pretty low in there, and I was super happy with that pick on our mock draft.
Yeah, if you look at the wide receivers that are going around where DK is at 52, Brandon Cooks, who has had 1,000 yards each of the last 6 seasons. Hollywood Brown, who is going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Arizona Cardinals till DeAndre Hopkins comes back. D-Hop also has an injury history. And they also have the connection. They played in college, Marquise Brown with Kyler Murray. I would love to take either of those 2 guys there instead of taking DK Metcalf. And then, of course, also goes down for when you have to take a look at Tyler Lockett, like about 20 picks later. Number 5, back to the running backs. Antonio Gibson, he picked up at the end of last year. He had, I think, almost around 40 points the last 2 weeks. However, he lost the role as the pass catcher, which is so odd to me. He was a wide receiver in college, converted to a running back. So all signs point to, he should be a team's pass catching back. No, that ended up being McKissick. McKissick also took a lot of the touchdowns away from him at the end of last season. You have Carson Wentz now, so the quarterback position still stinks. I'm pretty skeptical on Terry McLaurin, but something you pointed out before we were talking today is that he found a way to make it work with bad quarterbacks in his entire career. So McLaurin's not going to be on this list. But Antonio Gibson at ADP 55, where you could have Eli Mitchell or somebody I'm really big on, Travis Etienne, I really don't like him there.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. He's probably drafted a little bit too high. I'm not going to say he's going to be like a total bust. I say he's still like a low end RB2. But yeah, he has good potential, and if he's used correctly, he just hasn't been used correctly. Obviously, the coaches are seeing something that they don't like. So
the biggest thing for running backs in fantasy when you're drafting lower is how many touchdowns are they going to get, how many passes can they catch? I've been struggling with those two words, pass catching. I've been struggling with that all day. But Antonio Gibson losing that role, and then last year it was a back and forth between him and McKissick all year. When you could have Eli Mitchell, somebody that I know you're very high on, I'm very high on as well, and Travis Etienne, again, somebody who has potential RB1, not in all fantasy, but he could be your RB1 on your team at the end of the year. Antonio Gibson is like barely even a flex play for me.
Okay. I wouldn't go as far as a barely a flex play, but I'm gonna agree with like obviously, I love Elijah Mitchell. I valued him really highly last year. I have him pretty high going into this year. A lot of people know it, so I don't mind saying it. Etienne, I'm not 100% sure I would draft him over him. I know you pointed out, I just learned that James Robinson's going to be missing some of the beginning of the year. So he has the opportunity to, surpass and take that role in Jacksonville. And he, of course, did play with Lawrence in college. So, yeah, so he could take over that role. There are some other running backs that we saw that we would also rather take than him at that point.
Yeah. Gibson is definitely overdrafted. If you got him around 75, I think that's a little better. But again, player on a bad offense where his touches are going to be in competition with somebody else. We saw what happened last year with him. He had a few good games, but he had also a lot of mad games. Again, and then our next player here, somebody else, just a product of being on a terrible team, terrible quarterback, that being Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was a pass catching machine with the Cowboys, caught over 100 passes multiple times with them, but now he's going to the Browns. And if you have Deshaun Watson, completely different story.
100%.
However, as Dolphins fans, we know the quarterback that they're going to be rolling out with isn't quite as good.
Yeah, they're going to be rolling out most likely. We'll know more in a couple weeks, but at this point, it's probably going to be Jacoby Brissett. And it was pretty bad because during the Ravens game, when Tua was on the bench, we actually were like, is it bad that we kind of hope he gets hurt, but not bad, but not like enough to come out of the game for Tua?
And that happened.
Which actually happened.
And what happened? What did the fans do?
Bro, they went crazy.
They clapped.
Yeah, like that. That's the first time I've seen that since Matt Schaub. You remember Matt Schaub when they took him off on the cart and Houston fans were clapping?
Yeah.
That was probably way worse.
On a cart is, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, and Jacoby was arguing with Flo to get back in the game. But,
thank God he didn't.
Yeah, thank God. That sparked kind of the winning streak they went on. But, yeah, so Brissett, in other words, is pretty not good.
That's the PG rated one.
That's the PG rated. Colts fans will tell you the same thing. They've dealt with their fair share of bad veterans over the past few years. So
he's definitely on that list, and Amari Cooper's gonna take a dip this year. He was in an offense that was really well run with Kellen Moore, had CeeDee Lamb alongside him to take away some of the coverages, and even in spite of CeeDee and his emergence, Amari Cooper was still the top dog in that offense. Dak loved throwing to him. Now he's going to, like we said, Jacoby Brissett, where, man, like you don't know what quality at all you're going to be getting from Jacoby Brissett this year. And then when you look, again, at the players that are drafted around him, Allen Robinson, completely different situation.
Oh, bro.
You have Amari Cooper going from a great offense to now a terrible offense because of the quarterback situation. You have Allen Robinson, who has been playing with the worst quarterback crop really in NFL history, it feels like, for a top wide receiver. You play with Blake Bortles, then you go on, you have to play with Mitch Trubisky, you play with Nick Foles, you play with Josh or Fields last year. He's had such a rough time of it, but now Allen Robinson is going into that Rams offense, which is going to be really pass heavy. With the running game was very mediocre last year.
Yeah, they had a lot of injuries.
They did, but then even when they were healthy, it wasn't a free flowing rushing attack.
Yeah.
So Allen Robinson is going into a wonderfully constructed pass offense, and also Adam Thielen, who's a touchdown machine. And again, that offense for Minnesota is going to be tasty this year, getting Kevin O'Connell from the Rams. So double Rams connection there, double great offenses. Amari Cooper, do not draft him if you're looking to draft like a wide receiver 2 or something, or even a flex. Would not look to have him as a flex.
And to even add on to that, with without a good quarterback at the helm, they're going to be relying heavily on their 2 Pro Bowl running backs
Yeah.
they have, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb.
Yeah, definitely there for the Browns. Amari Cooper. Do not draft Amari Cooper. Last person on our do not draft list is somebody that's a little further down that at first glance, you could definitely justify yourself saying, oh, he could have a breakout year this year as a rookie. Like he could really perform well. The wide receivers around him aren't that good. That being Treylon Burks, the first round pick that Tennessee took when they got rid of A.J. Brown. Treylon Burks in college was a physical beast, very comparable to A.J. Brown. However, the reports coming out about him with his asthma issues, him not being able to go through team workouts, having to really have a shortened practice is very concerning. And so far on the depth chart, which they already have an injured Robert Woods, so he's not even able to get above the replacements for Robert Woods. Treylon Burks, even though he's going in the 90s, I would heavily avoid him.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to agree with you. Until there's more clarity on his health situation, I would avoid him. I would keep a close eye on it, though, if I were you guys looking for some sleepers out there. Just for reference, I mean, Jamar Chase, everybody thought he was absolutely garbage last year to start, and then he ended up being, like, a wide receiver 4 overall?
Yeah. But his issue was dropping passes in preseason camp.
It wasn't a health issue.
Asthma, not being able to go through team workouts is very concerning.
Yeah, but he can still, watch film and do all the preparation stuff he needs to mentally. And he's obviously able to get the health issues worked out in college. So he's had that for a while now. So he just needs to get it worked out again for the pros. I hope he figures it out. He's a good young man. So,
yeah. So that's our do not drafts. You could include players like Ezekiel Elliott. If you want to be harsh, you could say like a Tyreek Hill for how high he's going. But definitely those players I really want to avoid. Najee, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, both Seattle receivers. DJ Moore. Did we talk about DJ Moore?
No, we didn't.
Did we?
No, we did not talk about DJ Moore. So we can roll back to that. Real quick.
Sorry about that. DJ Moore was supposed to be our 4th one here. I guess I just completely skipped over him. DJ Moore has had such mediocre quarterback play. He gets around 1,000 yards, but again, I have a huge problem with where he's going. Mike Williams, who was a very solid wide receiver last year, finished above Keenan Allen as the number 1 wide receiver in that offense. You could take around pick 40. Hollywood Brown, Travis Etienne, 2 guys that I've previously mentioned, I'm very high on. DJ Moore, though, with Baker, Darnold, I don't care who it is, it's still crap. We've seen what Baker has looked like with top wide receivers, with Odell, with Jarvis Landry. We've seen Sam Darnold play football, and I know it's not good. DJ Moore, as good of a talent he is, being held back by the quarterback, being held back by that offense is a big concern for me.
And I don't think, to add on to that, so you saw how Odell, who is a very quarterback-friendly wide receiver, he didn't mesh with Baker. And then the type of receiver that DJ Moore is, he's an outside receiver. So, I mean, Baker doesn't do that. Baker's like
trash.
Well, he does slants and like shorter routes is Baker's game, and that's just not meshing with DJ Moore
or with really any wide receiver he's played with. Like he had a nice connection with Donovan Peoples-Jones
Donovan Peoples-Jones, and he had a decent connection with Landry, although Landry kind of cursed him out a couple times, but
yeah, rightfully so. And you see Odell with the tattoo or the picture of like him in a Rams uniform helping up himself with a Browns uniform. Like Baker has a lot to blame with that, and I do expect those same struggles to continue here now that Baker has been traded from Cleveland over to Carolina, and I really feel bad. DJ Moore is another great wide receiver talent who's being held back by his quarterbacks.